Nope. So, Dimitri, you can go on, and if we will have some question, we will do at the end. Thanks.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, before there was something, now I see white. I don't know why.
Oh, what's happening?
Now, yes.
Let's try again with the full screen.
Okay. No.
No, it doesn't work. Okay, let's forget the full screen.
Yes.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks Olaf and Fausto for the presentation. I will quickly present the results of the survey for geophysics. So first of all, who answered the survey? So we received 26 responses, and geophysics was accounted for about 1/4 of the total responses to the survey. So 26 responses from 40 different institutions with a split of about 60% French people and 40% Italian people. One important aspect regarding geophysics was the multidisciplinarity. About 70% of the responder highlighted that they work on geophysics and also other topics, and the spread is represented here with 45% on astronomy, astrophysics, space weather, and remote sensing. And two other strong components that are glaciology and paleoclimates, and as well geology and geodynamics, but also atmospheric sciences. So obviously geophysics has its own research topics, deep earth seismology, deep earth structure, inner core, and so on, but there is also very strong interactions with astronomy, astrophysics, space weather, glaciology, paleoclimates, geology, and geodynamics. So it's important to keep that in mind. Regarding the current and future involvement of people that have responded to the survey, basically the summary is seen here at the bottom left, is that about 77% of the people are currently using Concordia data for their research, either because they are part of an ongoing research project in Concordia or they use just data from Concordia. And in the future involvement, most responder, actually the majority responded that they plan to be part of research project in Concordia. So it still shows that obviously the people that responded to the survey are interested by this topic, but there is still involving a new research ideas that are going on regarding Concordia. So in terms of geophysics perspective in Concordia, so there were a lot of interesting research topics that was highlighted by the responses. Here I present a word cloud of some of the responses that shows the words that are coming that with the most occurrence in the comments. And here we present some of the main messages that goes on from those responses. The first thing is it has been highlighted by people before, is the very strong interest of Concordia for long-term observatories and long-term observation programs, with the advantage to have a very remote, calm place in a critically undersampled region with winter over capabilities. And that's very critical for many research projects. So from earthquake seismology, deep earth structure, geomagnetic fields variations, space weather, ionosphere studies, etc. And people really are very clear that there is a strong interest to maintain and expand those long-term observatories to be able to follow all those topics carefully in the years to come. A second thing that was clearly out of the survey was the need for spatial extension of observations and for survey geophysics in general, based on Concordia. So that's also the message that the geophysical speaker have presented, that Concordia is basically a unique place capable of providing logistical support for aircraft and ground-based geophysics. And that's very critical to gain new insights about properties and dynamics of many research topics. So I list a few here, but they have been covered mainly in the two talks previously. So obviously the ice structure, lateral variations of the ice thickness, internal pervasive structure of the ice, how we can follow flow signatures with anisotropy, for example, and the fabric. So obviously there is a lot of geophysical methods that can help gain information from this. The extensions of observation can also help to solve problems with mass balance, with gravity surveys, for examples. We can gain also knowledge about the bedrock's morphology and the roughness that has been mentioned previously as well. And critical aspect regarding the subglacial legs and how the water helps the basalt sliding, for example. All this is, of course, related to three questions regarding the thermal structure and the heat flux in East Antarctica, and that is directly related to crustal and lithospheric structures, so tectonic origin of the various formations and plate tectonics, and obviously all things related to deep earth and inner core structures, for example, inner core anisotropy studies and so on. And all this, of course, all these extended observations are critical to constrain modeling efforts in many research topics related to geophysical measurements. So obviously it's very pluridisciplinary, and there is a lot of effort, but still there is a very strong interest of the community for that spatial extension. And one critical aspect is to try to better exploit the logistical route between Dumont d'Urville and Concordia for scientific activities. Another important output of the survey is how new technologies will help the science in the years to come regarding geophysical observations and geophysical surveys. There is a variety of new tools that are available or that are currently developed or just mature that will help those extended observations. So to cite a few, seismic nodal cable-free networks for passive and active seismology that will provide better detection capabilities, for example, for the subglacial water discharge, all the basalt sliding events, and so on. Also, a new perspective regarding optical fibers and strain measurements in optical fibers that can be deployed in Antarctica as well. Small interferometer, high-frequency GPS, miniaturized radar, borehole sensors, and obviously a new satellite that, as Fausto just mentioned. So that will also guide the science plans in Concordia, because there is new methods and new technologies and new methods that are emerging, and that will change a bit the way we sample the ice and the crust around Concordia. In terms of foreseeing logistical needs, so same here, I present the word cloud, and as you can see, the main words that are coming out and most of the comments are related to vehicles, REDs, airplanes, pilots, array, route, camps. So basically improve the mobility around Concordia for survey geophysics. That's a very, very strong output of the survey. The second aspect is highlighted here with stations, seismic observatories, shelters, buildings, power supply, ICT. So there is a need to help the long-term observatory, basically to make them permanent if possible, and to have better infrastructure and communication capabilities for science activity. And there is also a need for obviously technical help for this. And finally, as I mentioned in my previous slides, the words about new technologies. So sensor, energy, DAS, nodes, GNSS, radar, new systems, all those words are including in the responses here. And that shows that new technology opens science perspective, especially for survey geophysics, but they also opens logistical perspective to be able to have easier power supply in remote places in Antarctica, for example. Finally, the results of the survey for geophysics, and I think for most topic, is about the collaboration in Concordia. And you can basically see here that only 4% of the responders saw that science in Concordia should be viewed only as a national project. Most people seen that as international, or at least both national and international projects. So most of the responders sees the project as part of a collaboration effort, and we can safely say that science in Concordia is a unique opportunity for international collaboration. So for the following actions, based on the survey results, we will open several discussion topics on the forum that will be available, or that is already available actually. So I will not detail this, but please, all the people that are interested in this, feel free to share your thoughts and remarks and suggestions on those topics. And of course, you can always contact us directly if you have some suggestions about the perspective of science in Concordia. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks. So, thanks, Dimitri. There is a comment by Vito that is increased mobility will raise the question of search and rescue. Yeah, we opened the box of dreams of our colleague. So with this survey, everybody just make, I think, comments about what are the dreams and the best for future research. Then when we will define the science plan, we will need to take in account also these things. I don't know if Vito, you would like to say something, then we will move to the next.
Just to say, I would like just add a comment that this is what I say as challenge. We have 65 people in the station. We have a limitation for many things. So we can dream what we like, but at the end we have limited resources, and we need to combine this. And I read that to put people until 500 kilometers from the station. This is very, very, very dangerous and very risky. And okay, this means to look, pay attention. If something happens, we will lose Concordia. So we can just look to Concordia as a very good opportunity, but always consider the risk and the trends that come from the request. Always. The SWOT analysis is very important. Anytime, because otherwise we understand very well the scientific idea, but we need to move slowly in a safe way, for a step ahead. This is what I say challenge. When I say challenge, is what I intended. What about search and rescue? If you have 3 groups in different locations over the plateau, okay, please let's solve this question. When we have solved and we have the instruments to operate, we can say this is possible. Otherwise, it's not possible. If we need to have 100 kilowatts, but we have only 115 total, this is impossible. So the constraint need to be there anytime. Anytime we think, we need to see then we have limits. No, so think to the dreams, but always think to the dreams considering what you have at disposal, not just
Vito, I agree with you, but there are still a variety of things that can be done. as it has been shown by Fausto, you can also use aircraft to do some geophysical explorations. And
Yes.
as has been shown also by Massimo, there are also scientific traverse that has been done, the Vostok traverse, the East traverse last year. So there are possibilities to explore and to do science on the Antarctic plateau around
no.
Concordia. Obviously, nobody, I mean,
No
we
doubt.
can't have many teams everywhere, I agree, but still, there's possibilities exist and will need to be evaluated in the future, especially how we can eventually provide more capabilities, of course, with the rescue in mind.
Okay, so
yeah, this is the challenge.
So
to plan.
there was in the program a coffee break. But the next is Vito, the chair of the next session is Vito. So
Yeah,
I give you the ball, Francesco. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you for the keynote speaker who provided us a superb panorama of the possible activities. Thank you for the conveners who has excellently made a resume of the outcomes of the survey. Now I would propose a 10-minute break. Then we will reconvene at 16:35, and we will leave the ground to the atmospheric sciences with Vito Vitale and Joël Savarino chairing the session. So let us reconvene in 10 minutes from now. Thank you.
Francesco? No?
Vittor, ricominciamo?
Io non lo so, perché dovrebbe essere Francesco che dovrebbe arrivare. Non so dov'è Francesco.
Hello, I'm here, so we can.
Okay, Francesco, we can start. Can you? So, okay, I just switch on my camera just to give you the time.
Yes,
Okay, so
the play as a speaker.
you give me, Francesco, yeah, to the Aki Dr. Virkula. You can but Francesco.
Do you want to introduce Aki?
Francesco, you have nothing. Yeah, I can introduce Aki, and you can give to him directly that
is perfect.
The privilege for yeah, because I have no slides to present, because we will try to be short. So thanks to all. I hope the coffee break was able to refresh. And after an intense first section with a lot of information, a lot of ideas, a lot of results. So now we move to the atmosphere. Then was nominated many times also in the previous section due to the strong connections, and we have a very happy to have as key speaker Dr. Virkula, then come from, she's a researcher at the Finnish Meteorological Institute and Helsinki University, is involved in Antarctic research for a long time, I believe more than 20 years now, and since 2007 is cooperating and working with us in Concordia. She has the sufficient physical and chemical background to keep in the right way these two souls of the atmospheric science. You know, we always have this dilemma about atmospheric physics or chemistry. Okay, that physics and chemistry. And Dr. Virkula, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, thanks, Vito. Do you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Good, good. And can you see my PowerPoints now?
Not yet. Is coming probably.
Is it?
We see a blank screen. Your blank screen.
Is coming probably. There is a delay in the web. Normally it's not yet.
Here it is.
It is on my screen.
Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
It's only my screen in delay, but it will arrive. So you can start.
Okay. You can see it now. Okay. So
some people, not all the people. Francesco, you are able to see?
Yes.
Do you see the outline now?
Yeah. So
yes.
Vito, do you see it?
Some of the no, but it's not important if the other are looking. I can listen.
Should see.
Go ahead. Take time. Okay, now is okay.
Okay.
I also receiving.
Okay.
Probably my line is very slow.
So okay. Yeah, here's the outline of my talk. It's practically what Vito wished I would talk about. So I'll talk about the processes and interesting topics for research at Concordia, and what would be the role in the observation system of Concordia, and relevance for regional climate models, and also the role of investigation of gradients. And then I have some additional notes. So in the first part, I'll discuss and show some data pictures and introduce to my new project and links with an Italian project. And please tell me if you don't see any pictures, then wait. So first, we've seen this new particle formation and growth ever since we started the number size distribution measurements there. For example, here is published data from 2011, and there's on the upper panel there is particle size distribution from 10 nanometers to 700 nanometers, and below there is cluster mode particle size distributions from sub-nanometer size to about 40 nanometers. And we can see that there is new particle formation and growth. And that still happens this year. So we can see particle formation. And so now we have seen that, but we want to explain this. So one thing is we want to study is this stratosphere to troposphere exchange events, or what is it? And that could be done also with some chemical analysis. But these SD events will be studied together with David Butera. And then what we have seen is that there is a clear seasonal cycle as everywhere in Antarctica. But so here on the upper panel, upper row, there is a mass concentration calculated from the site distribution and from filter samples of two size fractions. And of course, the minimum is in Antarctic winter. And then the minimum of the black carbon concentration is a little bit in a different time. It's in the autumn. It's in May. And then it increases, as you can see, it increases here up to about October, November, and then it starts decreasing again. And the fraction of black carbon is pretty high. It's if we don't do any scattering correction for filter sampling measurements, it's around 5%, 6% in the autumn, and a little bit less if we do the scattering corrections. But then this is correlated with black carbon emissions from the surrounding continents, and that's important. Then we did source analysis with FlexPath footprint statistics, and we see that on the left there is the black carbon source areas. They are on the continents. I mean, there is it's not exactly there what this shows, but the sources are there. And on the right panel there's the single scattering albedo, so we can see that the highest single scattering albedos come from the ocean around. And then I plot here one time series from December, so from last year, when there were a large fire in Australia. So the black line is black carbon, of course, because black, and the red line there is mass concentration calculated from the DMPS data, and we can see these high peaks. They take about 1 to 2 weeks, so they are long, and they exceed the black carbon concentration exceed by 3-4 times the median values. So the surrounding continents are affecting. So we are not separated from the rest of the world. And then I got this project together with my colleague from University of Helsinki. Like we always do this together with them. We are building side by side. So we are studying the relative contribution of cloud condensation nuclei and the sources and ice nucleation particles. And then we try to estimate the contribution of long-range transported aerosol. That means just wanted to show those previous pictures to show that BC aerosols from the surrounding continents, they do arrive at Concordia, and they might be working as CCN and ionization particles. And what we measure, like we have done earlier, number size distribution, chemical composition, CCN, and isonucleation particles, and aerosol optical properties. We have intensive campaigns at Aboa and Marambio, and long-term measurements at Marambio and Concordia. That's how Concordia is linked here. That's kind of the schematics of the project. So we will have here in work package 1 and 2 intensive campaigns at Aboa and Marambio, which Marambio is on the northern part of the Antarctic Peninsula. We study biogenic particles coming from the sea. There are certain microbes that would work nicely as isonucleating particles. And at Concordia, we would expect to get long-range transported aerosol, and we would expect stratosphere-troposphere exchange events, and to see all that, and then it flows down. That's what we'd expect. And then from this actual research plan, we have this work package ready for aerosol on the upper plateau. We would like to quantify the year-to-year and seasonal variations and estimate the source contributions. And University of Helsinki and FMI measure aerosol optical properties and particle number distributions. And then we want to calculate the CCN concentrations by using the site distribution and the chemistry that we wish you would provide us in the Stratosphere to Troposphere Exchange and Arctic Region project led by Davide Putera. And also, we would wish that from there we get the assessment of ST events by using the Relium 7 and ozone and aerosol chemistry data. And you also do FlexPart, high-split Steflux modeling, and that would be extremely good. And then we will also do aerosol optical properties and particle number size distributions at South Pole. The Americans have already done aerosol optical properties for years, decades at South Pole, but they don't have number size distribution measurements. So University of Helsinki lab engineer Pati Aalto built this DMPS similar to what is running at Dome C to South Pole. So they will install it probably next summer season there, so in 1 year. They are testing it at Boulder now. Okay, that was about my projects. Then, role of Concordia in the observation system. Like we've seen, there are not many observation sites on the high plateau, and especially those that make soundings regularly. That's what I've found out by doing some literacy survey. And aerosol trace gas measurements could be added to the GO network. They are continuous long-term calibration procedures are standards, and they would be quality controlled, and I wish we could do that. And yeah, so this was about this sounding sites. You see on the left panel, you have these observation sites for ground-based observations, and then on the right panel, the radio soundings. And for some reason, in this database, there was nothing about Dome C, although Vito told me that there is some soundings, but they are not part of this database. Anyway, there's obviously missing here something that Dome C. And about the GO stations, there are global and there are regional contributing networks, local and other element stations. At the moment, Concordia is other element station, but not a global station. It could be perfectly good as the global station. And presently, yeah, it's another element station. would be updated to a global station, and there are certain regulations how it can get this update, and it's in the Go report 228 from Global Atmospheric Watch, and you can see it there in the annexes. But it does require some improvements. There is a GO station at South Pole, but it's not exactly the same as Dome C. So here I have some 4-month time period of light scattering coefficient at Dome C, the red line, and at South Pole. You see that it's there are two things that I want to show in this picture. The variability is actually quite big, so it's not the same aerosol all the time at both stations. And the other thing I want to show is that some of these peaks are observed almost simultaneously at both stations, and often scattering coefficient is much lower, almost a decade lower than at South Pole. Okay, then I did the statistics, 6-year statistics. You can see that in summertime, the scattering coefficients, they are more or less the same at both sides, but in wintertime, there is a clear difference. That's something to be studied. And on the lower panel, I have single scattering albedo. Then it goes in spring, pretty low. And that's when we have this biomass burning stuff coming from surrounding continents. So it's clearly linked to that. And this has radiative implication. Radiative forcing is then, so there's heating the atmosphere at these single scattering albedos. Then about for climate models need observations to compare with. And for them, important is that there are long-term observations. Sea salts, secondary marine emissions may change when waters are changing and sea ice is diminishing. Biomass burning may change, and that's for aerosols, and then trace gases will also probably change. So the sea is emitting trace gases that form particles, etc. Here's just one picture from the same paper where what is this sounding stuff. You can see that here's the bias of temperature from model versus the observations, and you can see that the model is biased at Concordia and autumn and winter. Thus, this has something to do with the missing sounding data that they used for this paper. Maybe not, I don't know. Then about biomass burning emissions, there's been papers that suggest that biomass burning, for instance, in Australia might increase. There would be, according to this model, there would be statistically significant increases in the near surface fire weather values, which means there would be more biomass burning. And the emissions do affect both direct and indirect radiative forcing. And I write here if these biomass burning efficiency errors are observed at Concordia, but this if word is stupid because they are observed at Concordia, and they affect a large area. Here is another paper about the same stuff. So in Africa, there's an increasing trend. You see the red ones. According to this study, this was done by using satellites remote sensing in 1996 to 2015. And there was trend. And this definitely does come also to Antarctica. And then it asked me to talk something about gradient measurements. So we could do, there are different approaches of doing gradients, making fixed locations, at least 2 sites. Then you could do sampling snow, because most of the stuff to snow comes from aerosols. And then mobile measurements during transport. That was discussed already in some paper, in some discussion earlier. So that you have done this, the French have done this, the Gradedal, so comparing Dumont-D'Urville and Concordia. So this is nothing new to you. And there is this latest paper where some of us were also co-authors. Lachenkoop et al. Did measurements on the coast, and there was also the site distribution data from Dome C included. And then you could do snow studies by sampling snow on traverses and analyze the samples for whatever constituents. Sea salt, trace metals, MSA, you name it. And that has been done, but it could be done more often. And then you can make mobile measurements. I've done it myself 10 years ago, or the paper is took 10 years ago. We just did close to Aboa, 300 kilometers from the coastline to inland with a snowmobile. And we had a green optical particle counter, a CPC, on board, and took filter samples, analyzed them for different ions. And you can see there's a clear gradient. And this could be done, of course, on your traverses from the coast to Concordia regularly. Always when you travel, there could be some box that has aerosol samplers and maybe some trace gas sampler. And I know you've done, the Italians have done it in Spitsbergen, Svalbard. You have papers out of that. Okay, that was about the main point presentation. Then some additional notes about the contamination you get from this station, from Concordia. You see that these colored lines, they are about the non-scattering corrected black carbon concentrations, and they vary in this range. There's percentiles, that's the 99th percentile. But then when we come to the dirty sector, it rises by 2, 3, 4 orders of magnitude above the clean sector concentrations. Now you have to be very careful when sampling. And then my question is, when you are renovating the station or whatever, can you reduce these emissions by any kind of filtering exhaust or something like that? And the other question, has anybody taken a gradient of snow samples around Concordia for OCEC analysis? I think that would be very useful to see the effect. How far does it affect snow samples? And yeah, like I said, remember to use a very good sector control when sampling aerosols, because these several order of magnitude higher PC concentration, they do contaminate your samples immediately. And yeah, questions. And another effect of climate change. The French national football team lost to Finland for the first time in history. Thank you.
Okay, the last slide is quite I believe the PS is it was a surprise, yes, but okay. Thanks, Saki, for keep the job, try to make some elements and some inputs with respect to the topics we raise, and also for the last comment about the quality. This can become an issue on which to talk if to establish a sort of quality control program in Concordia, sorry, then can try help us to help. Mainly about the first, we need to work to reduce in the future. We need to use the profit of this reorganization of the station to ask for more attention on the quality the footprint of the station. Okay, thanks a lot. I don't know if there are immediate questions to Dr. Virkula at the moment. Otherwise, we can move to the presentation about the results of the survey and just give. I see something. There is a. I was looking at another slide. I don't know who was introducing, but then okay. So if there are no questions, I will move the floor to Dr. Savarino, to Joel, then can summarize to us the results of the survey and try to keep some times for questions and a discussion about the perspective of our atmospheric science in Concordia. Okay, so please can I ask to Francesco to give the floor, the rights to Joel to make his presentation.
Done. He should be able to share the screen.
Yeah, I'm
okay, Joel, floor is yours.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I will show you the result of the survey. So the data has been compiled by me and Vito. So regarding, okay, is it going to work? No. Okay, I think I need to pass to this mode. Can you see something?
At the moment, a black screen.
A black screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Black screen, yes. Eventually, we can come back on the no presentation mode, but try to close some other windows because we see the presentation, but in a cloud of windows open. So it's very difficult to follow.
Okay, let me try again to share my screen.
So I just need to say then, as a statistics, we was a maximum of 150 at the beginning. Now we are till 122. No, not too bad, considering then we start 3 hours ago. So it's a challenge always when we overpass 3 hours in virtual. No, Joel, the only way I believe is no presentation mode, but you need to close some windows and remain only the window about the PPT.
Yeah.
The best approach, because seems the presentation mode doesn't work, or for I don't know why.
But
so you need to close the window. Yeah, now we see the screen, but we see the whole screen. So the presentation is just in the middle. So if you can close some other windows. Yeah, if you can close some windows.
It's I'm showing my screen with the PPT, but you're not see anything.
Yeah, but the best is to have no presentation mode and just close other windows.
I'm not
and leave only the.
I'm not in a presentation mode. I'm not in a presentation mode. So it's really the screen become black when I show in front.
Can you,
PPT.
Francesco? Have you the presentation? Can you send the presentation to Francesco, and eventually Francesco can show, and you can just say move slide. If you have technical difficulty, we can move different way.
Okay, I will send the presentation to Francesco.
Yeah, eventually, Francesco. You can keep the function to just to move the slides. This. So I hope you can have no technical problem like.
Okay, I'm sending the file
Sorry
right
for this
now.
technical problem. So we started at 4:40. So I'm planning to have the 45 minutes. So we have other 20 minutes. So I hope we can soon solve the technical problem, and the presentation of Joel not very long, and so we should have some time. So I kindly ask the people try to think about the topics, and we try to give us as a job to Aki and try to provide more elements.
Did you receive it?
To the discussion.
Francesco?
Yes, I'm receiving. Now I will
Francesco?
share my screen and see whether we.
So of course, we can then put the 4 topics and the notes coming from Aki on the forum, and so this can eventually organize the debate on the forum. Eventually, Joel will present also some other proposal for the next steps.
Do you see my screen
okay,
now?
Yeah.
Okay, Francesco, you
so
can move
Joel,
to the
please, and just to give to Francesco the information when you need to change.
Yeah. So next screen, Francesco. Yes, so we have compiled all the contribution that we received, and there is 38 out of 105 contribution coming from the atmospheric chemistry and physics. And as you will see, there's many overlap with the paleoclimate and glaciology, and less with astronomy. So there was 11 women who replied out of 38, and there's a good balance between French and Italian. So regarding the question that were asked, I highlight a few percentage here.
Joel,
Yeah,
we have we are continue to see the first slide, at least me. Francesco, can you change the slide?
I am seeing on my screen
Francesco?
a slide reporting all the percentage of contribution. So it's not the first, it's the second to me.
Yeah, but me too. I see.
Okay, if the other, if we are looking only the first.
The title, you mean?
Yeah.
Let's try another way. I will do another thing.
I know that GoToMeeting is a little bit more complicated than Zoom from this point of view.
Yeah.
Okay, now at least we see the second.
Okay, so
okay, go ahead, Joel. Sorry.
Yeah, I just highlight the few percentage of the question asked. And so the first was, as you already part of a proposal at Concordia, and are you engaged already or plan to be involved in Concordia research? And as you can see, 95% are already have been to Concordia, who have been part of a proposal, and 63 are already engaged or will be. So for me, this a short summary, it tells me that most of the people who reply to the survey, it's already people that are involved in polar science. And basically, the survey is not really open to the people who are outside our community. The other percentage I want to highlight, it's that most of the proposal or project already running at Concordia are international, either through a collaboration with the EU or international collaboration. So this dimension, it's already present in Concordia, and I want to stress this result too. Okay, can you move to the next slide, please? So
Did I succeed?
Yeah, next slide. So we did also a statistic survey of the words, and as you can see on the left, you have the word that came up with the question, what is the importance of Concordia in your research? And then if we remove Concordia and Antarctica, we can see that there's process, polar precipitation, unique ice plateau that came up. And regarding the other description, the logical needs in few words, then we can see that we have few words that pop up, like shelter, support, sampling, instrumentation, access, and surface, and for sure atmosphere. Okay, now if we detail a little bit all these words, so next slide, please. So I try to summarize in all the reply what can be the benefit of Concordia for your science. And basically, this is the summary of the survey. So many people pointed that it's a dry place, so it's very good to make observation, especially the upper troposphere. That the Concordia, it's in the polar vortex, so we can study the polar vortex dynamics. Also, there was a lot of reply that the surface processes, it's very important, and there's a strong link with the ice core, and so it's a place where we can study the transfer function between atmosphere and the ice. Also, it's a place where we can do long and short-term study. This has already been stressed many times in other presentations. It's a place where you have pluridisciplinary field and science, and so you can cross and compare your data with other field, and this also, it's a strong benefit of the Concordia. Well, it's a place to study atmospheric chemistry for sure, and it's also a place to test model and to push to their limit, given the extreme condition of Antarctica and the plateau. Like also many other pointed, Concordia can be used as a hub to move around. And I think this, it's a strong characteristic of Concordia that I think is not used enough. For sure, there's year-round observation, and except South Pole, Concordia is the only other place on the Antarctic plateau where you have year-round observation. It's a pristine environment, and it's probably the last natural laboratory on Earth. It's maybe a good place also to test new technology like solar cell panels or another way to generate energy in an autonomous way. It's a place to validate satellite data, and so you can compare and calibrate the satellite data. It's a specific place where specific precipitation processes happen. And finally, it's a large homogeneous terrain all around, and so this gives also some opportunity to make research. So next, please. So now if we transfer all of these benefits into science needs. So basically, it's again a summary of all the reply we got. So people want to keep year-round operation for sure. And we need also to define a clean area away from the station impact. And this has become a main issue now that the station is running for more than 20 years. The snow around the station is not anymore clean. And again, some things that came also from other field, but also in this one, there's a need to move around the station in autonomy, maybe via Arctic truck, snowmobile, and camp. We have to find a way to move safely for sure, but I mean, it's a huge potential. People also want to keep the capability to drill shallow cores, and so it will be good to have this instrumentation on site. Change also and improve the laboratory inside the Concordia station and build a clean chemistry laboratory. There was also some remark about the database interoperability and broadly a place where we can find everything that is measured at Concordia. This also has been mentioned before, an efficient way also for transportation of the equipment and the people, and so that rotation can happen more often and faster. Keep technical support. We need technical support as a scientist, and we cannot only rely on our own experience. Maybe also there was a remark about installing a radar precipitation and get some mobile laboratory, and this can be connected to the other point where we can move around the station and do science away from the main base. There was also, and I think this also has been stressed mainly for radar, but also we can use plane to study the free troposphere and the chemistry also, and mainly during the connection between the coast and Concordia. Maybe we can think about equipment that can go into the twin otters or the basslers. People mentioned that the American tower can be better used and maybe get a better instrumentation on that tower. Also, people mentioned the need, because of this local pollution effect, maybe to set up another atmospheric observatory away from the station, but still that can be accessible in winter. Well, again, remote access to the experiment to get something more automatic, but this we need to improve the communication and the internet. Set up and don't lose the cold ice cut in laboratories that are already in place and people are using, especially for shallow cores and to prepare samples. Also, reorganize some shelters and better share the space so that there's no inconvenience or incompatibility between experiment going in these shelters. Try also to move to clean energy and transportation as much as possible. And also a point about drone regulation and how they can be used at the station. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. And based on that, we try to do a SWOT study. So basically,
Joel, if we can move a little bit faster, so we leave some minutes for comments.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll
thanks.
go fast. So the strengths, you know, all of them. It's the location, the year-round activities, multidisciplinary, and the Polar Sentinel Station, Concordia. So the weakness for the next slide, please. So the pollution is increasing with time. We are missing the activities was doing in the past, and so we don't know anymore if someone run on the place where we want to study. There's no camp, possible to do no camp or to move around the station. And the station still rely too much on fossil fuel, and this is a real problem for chemistry and also for particle measurement. and again, missing database with management system. Then next slide, please. So for the opportunity, for sure, we all see that there's a strong capacity for international collaboration and also to network Concordia with other stations, and a little bit like Interact does for the Arctic station. And the use of logistic road has a scientific infrastructure. So this is also mentioned by Dimitri, to use the gradient from the coast to the station, and this has a strong potential. Again, large unexplored land around the station, and also a much better location and weather condition with respect to South Pole. So the threat, next slide, please. So basically across what has been said just before, a loss of pristine area, lack of common platform for science proposal currently. Also, some people found the field campaign too long, and with a lack of rotation out and in of the continent. Again, this is a sealed field, and it may be difficult for newcomers who doesn't know how to enter into this field and what are the limits. And there might be also a loss of independence if we move to a European station or something more broader. We can move to the next slide, and I will switch the possible improvement, so because it has already covered by previous presentation. And so just for the next step quickly, so there's just to remind you that there's the forum that it's open, and you can still give your ideas and your way to improve the station. And so with Vito, we will prepare a draft, consolidate the thematic, and we will start to circle this draft. And by end of January, we hope to have a pre-final version of the document. And that's over for me.
Thanks a lot for this is the last slide that was illustrated by Joel. Just but I believe that the slides will be at disposal on the website. Apart, I don't see private information. I don't see problem to have. No, don't see critical information on this slide, and also for the other groups. So just we can have some minutes for some comment. I don't see nothing in the chat. I would like to ask if people then pertain to atmospheric, or people then from the other community can add, then say more about the connections with atmospheric science, if our presentation provide element and new ideas and new comment. So, okay, silent, we have a forum, we have a lot of instruments, eventually also a thematic meeting. We will see if it's necessary, or as others say, you can contact me and Joel, you can send information, you can communicate in each way you prefer, and any inputs will be retained as the survey to try to organize at the best. In any case, the document will be a draft, then for sure will be circulated, and we'll receive more comment later. Okay, so Francesco, we are in delay, so I believe then I can give the floor to the last scientific area, and it's we are I don't know how many time now. I think more than 30 minutes in delay at the moment, probably. Okay, no, maybe 40 or also. Okay, Francesco, I give back the floor to you and to the last section.
Okay, the last section is on biology and medicine, chaired by Paul Robach and Daniela Billi. If one of you wants to introduce Professor Chuker, and then we give the stage to him.
Yes,
Hello to everyone. Can you hear me and can you see me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So thank you for inviting us, Laura Billy from the University of Rome and myself, Paul Robach from ENSA in Chamonix, to chair the biology and medicine session. And right now we are going to welcome our invited keynote speaker, Professor Alexander Schuker, who is the head of the Laboratory of Translational Research, Stress and Immunity at the University of Hospital in Munich, Germany. Alexander, thank you very much for accepting to give this talk today at the Scientific Prospective of Concordia. And the floor is for you right now.
Yes, thank you very much for your kind words. And unfortunately, I could not listen to all these interesting presentations before, but I think it's a very exciting afternoon, and it's getting late, of course, and I try to, let me see if I can transfer my presentation to the screen here. Let me see if it works.
It is working.
You see my presentation?
Yes.
Oh, that's excellent. I have just to switch the window. Okay, give me a second. So do you see this, what I have to go to the first slide, not to the last, sorry. So you stay curious until the end. Okay, I just need to move the windows a little bit, otherwise I cannot type the, let me see how I get bridge presentation. So let's try it this way. I hope, okay, let me see.
It works.
My screen is so crowded that I can't even see my own presentation. Now it's better. Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to give you a little presentation on physiology, biology, and medicine. And the title was kind of bridging the topics stress and immunology in extreme environments where we are, where you are, where we are doing research. And I would like to give you some insights what we have learned so far and what we need to understand further. I know that your expertises are very diverse, and while I was listening to the other presentation before, I kicked out a couple of slides and to make kind of very clear and concise here in this forum. Let me see if it's working. I need to type somewhere. Here we go. I think the immune system and any reaction of our organism is always related to what information you will receive and what information is processed, and then how the system is reacting. So it's a kind of processor, the human organism. And when you look into it more detailedly, so we're looking on the immune system, and there's no need to show you here the details of this slide, but it displays to you, I hope, very clearly that there are a lot of interactions of the bodily immune system when a challenge is coming from outside, so that the appropriate output is given. We can translate this also into stress and stress response. So any change in our environment is doing something with our organism. And for the immune system, I mean, we have been shaped like the Earth by our environment in a way that the more we needed to survive longer and the more complex we got and the more environment we discovered and conquered, we lived longer and needed to cope with all the outside world in a better way. And you can see here from down to top, I don't know whether you see me, I think you may see my pointer. So we have very simple cells, protozoic and cells. They were even able to engulf stuff that is probably not, a danger to them. And then when you look here on this tree, you go up to the mammals, for instance, and along this evolution, the evolution of the immune system went along in the same way over the millions of years. So from the sea urchins who could already, you know, eat the, you know, foreign and dangerous substances, then you developed, you know, immune cells, and the fish, you have almost a complete immune setup, reptiles, and up to the humans who have a lot of different ways to fight, you know, the agents or hosts damaging and endangering microbes. And you see here with this young lady, we need to do exercise, and this is the same for our immune system. It's like a muscle. We need to practice him and to get very well coping with the new environment that we are challenged to. However, the situation is not that simple, and I wanted to show you in this three circles, so to say, of interactions where we are and what else is connected to where we are. I see us now in this kind of, unfortunately, I have to say, virtual environment more and more, but we are in a social environment here together, and our brains are working and we are receiving information. I'm talking and my brain is active, yours is listening. And however, this is not the only circle, so not the only regulation between outside and our brain. We have a lot of, you know, subsequent actions. For instance, that my heart is probably beating faster, that I have maybe some stress hormones who make me more alert, are related to the situation at this point. And there's also a distal, so to say, coming from the brain and to the immune cells. However, the immune cells themselves are sending back information, telling, look, we have an inflammatory condition, and there are sensors also in the brain capturing this information. So these are, we consider them extrinsic regulated, how to say, loops, but there's also a very important one I will touch on later on, is the intrinsic regulation. So what's happening in our body? So how the immune system is regulated. It's not only regulated by the hormones and nerves, it's regulated also by our microorganisms, which are in our body and that we live with, you know, all our life. However, we need to understand this intrinsic extrinsic regulation, and especially it has a strong impact when we go out to the extremes, whether it's space, whether it's Antarctica, or whether it's in the extremes of our modern world, where we are also challenged by a continuous change. So the big question remains, how can we understand these individual footprint of stress factors on our immune system? And there are, of course, different views on this. Like here, Alexander Gers, from looking from the cupola from the ISS down to the Earth, and he's living in a completely different environment. And he's putting himself like a fish jumping from one aquarium to the other into a completely different world, but seems to cope to a certain extent. However, we saw in the astronauts a lot of immune changes. I will show you later, but it's not only a very exclusive, it's exclusive, yes, but the reaction is not really exclusive, because when we, how to say, see this picture of moving from one place to the other over the last hundreds of centuries, there have always been, how to say, movements around the globe, and still nowadays, and we know it very well from different investigations that I could cite here, that there are these reactions between the immune system and your environment. So when you are displaced to somewhere else, your immune system is more prone to get allergies and autoimmune diseases when you would grow up there, or when you stay there and adapt to these environments. So the change makes a difference, and the change to the one direction and back to the other condition as well. When you look here, and I promised to show you this before on the astronauts, for instance, once it's just a challenge. We took the blood, for instance, and challenged it with fungal antigens. So antigens that we are commonly used to live with, or bacterial antigens. And you can see here L-30 means this is before the flight, before they went to space. And this is a return reaction. R+1 is first day, 7th day, and 30th day. And an analogy on the right side for bacterial antigens. And what you can see here is the activation of the system once you return. At this point, we had no investigations on the station, so we could just analyze the way back. And this is also not, this was, you know, back up by another interesting experiment on isolation, where you put these 6 guys here, very well trained, super exclusively selected people, into a Martian flight of 520 days, a virtual one, which fits quite nicely to our days now. but they were confined in these tubes here in the hall in the center of Moscow. And what we analyzed, the same answers. We challenged the blood of these subjects with the same antigens as I showed you before for the astronauts. And you can see here, this is baseline, so before they went into this isolation of 520 days. And you can see here, this is in mission, that's quite to the end. So there was a real activation, you can see here. And look what happened when they got out after 1 week, 14 days, up to 3 months. You could see this slope which went up and down in almost every subject, and at least 5 of 6 we had these changes, and this was quite surprising. So the readaptation to this environment is a strong impact. A perfect model environment to investigate this is, so to say, this space on Earth is a Concordia station, and you can see it here in somewhere really in midwinter, and we investigated in several winters in the choice study how the immune system is reacting in the overwintering crew. And this was quite interesting. As you can see here, without going into the details, these are immune responses which were challenged out of the blood, which was drawn and then incubated. And the ESA crew doctor did a lot of pipetting to analyze this. And we had hardware on the site to investigate this with everyone's help. And you can see here this increase over time of, so January starts the winter, so the deployment season, and this is here down to end of midwinter or something like that. So you can see here a real peak of activity of the immune system. And we challenged it in the same way as you could see before in the astronauts or in the Mars 500 people. And the same happened. So there was a continuous increase with a little dip at the end. And it was not really understood why this is the case. And although we had some hypotheses on that, we summarized, we did a lot of analyses, and there was obviously a kind of imbalance in the immune system that was observed. And these are all the data coming from Concordia station. I just you can see on the x-axis the kind of it's a time axis. So January, April, July, and October, the time points that you saw before, and you could see here that some activity increased of some immune answers, while on the other side, the inhibitory fraction of the immune system was kind of attenuated, and for this reason, this imbalance has occurred. And in addition, and this was analyzed in another winter season, we could see also an activation of endogenous viruses, so viruses that you carry in your body, and that are, how to say, replicated, and you can analyze in saliva, and you can see this increase, which was not really understood why this happened. I mean, the question on our immune, how to say, observation was at the end, this overreaction, what is it, what kind of problem do we, how to say, anticipate, because they were apparently not really sick, but the immune system has changed in a way which was quite unusual for us. So it could be this overactivation, could be an autoimmune problem. So when the immune system is not well differentiating between yourself and the foreign, and you are acting too strong to yourself, so to say. Or allergic reactions like eczema, and when you return especially to the normal world, you might encounter more problems. Or an underreaction, so some immune answers were, as I told you, some they were inhibited, which could lead to higher rates of infection, or surrogate markers, so markers related to an immune suppression, like the viruses that I showed you, which were developing and growing more frequently during the isolation. Whether it has any effect on long-term effects, we would doubt in these young people, but however, this is just the understanding of this imbalance of activation and inhibition. So the question is it really of academic nature, or is it really it's really an adaptive process or pathology? So this is something that we need or are about to understand. What helps us here is a very nice study in astronauts as well, where they looked on these viruses, for instance. And you can see here, these are astronauts from a NASA space mission. And the dash bars are these people, the crew, who had, these are the stress hormones, for instance, there's cortisol, you may know, there's epinephrine and norepinephrine, there's adrenaline and noradrenaline, very common, stress hormones that you are releasing. And you could see here that those who had high cortisol levels or epinephrine or norepinephrine were those who did this viral reactivation, while the others who had showed no reactivations of saliva had very low to unchanged stress hormones. So the question is, or the result or the conclusion was that the more neuroendocrine responses you have, the less efficient is your T cell. So T cells are immune cells fighting against viruses, for instance, the less are these answers. So this was a quite interesting observation. When we look into our data sets that we have gathered not only at Concordia station, but also at Neumeier station, which is at sea level, which is a very interesting control on the role of hypoxia, you could see here, for instance, in male and female, that this makes a real difference regarding the stress responses. This is, for instance, cortisol in the morning, which is normally higher than in the evening, which is also the case before they left. BDC means this was done in Europe. But while they are at the Neumeier station, you could see here a much higher significantly more elevated cortisol values. While the evening, the situation was not different between the genders. And cortisol ratio means this is a ratio between morning and evening, which was obviously higher in the female because they had much higher morning concentration with unchanged evening values. However, it's not only gender that matters as an environmental factor on your stress response, or whether it's space. It can also altitude. That means most likely the oxygen tension. We see here other stress hormones that are released by yourself. And these are the so-called endocannabinoids. And they look quite similar. And this is a comparison between the Concordia station, which is at high altitude, and the Neumeier station at a lower altitude sea level. You can see here at Neumeier, we had a very strong and immediate increase of the endocannabinoid. This is anandamide, for instance. Yeah? And at Concordia, these increases were still visible just because of the scale. They didn't show up here, but they were much, much less than compared to Neumeier. And this was true for all other stress hormones, which are regulating sleep, regulating appetite, and regulating mood. So this was a quite interesting and surprising observation, and we observed this in many seasons. As you can see here in the numbers, there were about at least 2 seasons in each group which was analyzed. So coming back to the question, so we know, and this is really not specific to Antarctica, but very nicely visible in Antarctica, how these loops are interacting. And the question is now, as we see here, we are more focused now on the physical social environment and on the stress axis. What else do we need to understand, and how we need to understand? So I think it's very important as a next step, taking into account and to understand and to better, to counterbalance these effects, are to better estimate the stress environment, which definitely includes not only, let's say, measuring stress hormones, but also the consequences on the genetic level. I come to this later, as well as, the microbial environment in itself, so where you are living and what is changing. We have the stress brain axis, the stress gut and brain immune axis that I show you briefly. And of course, at the end of my presentation, some ideas about countermeasures in one slide. That probably this gentleman who are familiar in this topic, he's an internist and was dealing a lot about adipositas, so overweight. And he had a very nice quote. So the genetics load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. So which means that if we want to really understand individual effects and causes, we need to bring these things together. So the environment plays a big role in how we react. And this was also a little bit later seen how in diseases do really interact between the environment and your gene, what you carry with you and what you read out of what you carry with you. And to analyze this, this Rubik's Cube expresses a little bit the confusion and the difficulty to how to interact and to get together all these informations, from these omics, so the genes, how they're reacting, the transcripts of the genes and the proteins and so on, and how we do it, analyzing it in cell cultures, in animal models, in clinical studies, and space analogs like Antarctica, and how we analyze this. So our approach was at the first stage to use a database provided by QIAGEN that we bought the license and looked into how can we integrate our knowledge and compare it to the knowledge available in these databases around the globe. And it was quite interesting that for the Concordia people, so first analysis showed, and you can see it here, and I pull it up, that this is a cluster of one wintering over in crew, for instance, which differentiate between each other depending on the time when they are analyzed. For instance, this violet and green ones are April and July, so in the middle of the isolation period, and they cluster well together. It seems that they are genetically quite similar in the sense of not being not the genome but the transcriptome, so what is read out of the genes. Well, you can see here there's some scattered, how to say, a distribution of the pre-Euro, means the BDC in Europe. They are clustering here a little bit together. When they are in Concordia, they are completely different from each other, and when they are back in Europe as well. So Concordia seems to align them, and you can see it on the heat map. While the left side are the other time points, the right side is here. This one is up and down regulated genes during the winter. There seems that something is really going on. And we have recently analyzed this, and gladly I'm happy that it was published before our presentation today. We explored all the genes regarding one question. Do we really see a viral reactivation in the genes as well without seeing the virus, so to say? And we did an exploratory RNA sequencing analysis in the healthy subjects over 12 months in Concordia station. And you can see here what we did. We took all the genes that we saw changed in, as you could see on the heat map, and tried to predict what effects will these genes develop on as a result, because we had this great database and our own data. And the interesting thing is that it was really predicting that the antiviral response was going down, and the replication of viruses and the viral infection, so to say, the model of a viral infection, was increased. So the genes could tell us in a way where the susceptibility lies. And this was confirmed by the viruses shed into the saliva. And we are not, of course, everything is regulated, as I told you before, because we are a complex organism, and we have to live in our social and environment, and we are activated and controlled by our brain. And we know that the brain is, of course, as I showed you before, controlling a lot of functions distally. And we looked on with our colleagues, especially Alex Dan, he looked on at the Neumeier station on the impact of isolation on the brain, especially on the hippocampus, which plays a real interesting and important role in memory, navigation, so all the things that you need that you probably lose when you don't change environment. And especially the hypothalamic region is of interest because there's a high density of corticoid receptors, so the stress hormone receptors in these regions, which are then vulnerable to increased levels. And it was shown in other models in rodents, for instance, isolation is to induce a reduction of the hippocampal area and affecting it. And the dental gyrus is one of the hippocampal regions which seems to play a key role. And Alex Dan did this analysis at Neumeier station, and it was quite striking and published in the New England Journal, that in 8 expeditioners, you could see here that the volume of the dental gyrus, this is a control group that was monitored over the same duration of 14 months. And you could see here the difference between the control group and the overwinterers who returned. And this was not only true for this dental gyrus, but all the others. However, in the small group size, you could not find significant, but still visible and clear differences, which are discriminating these two groups. And this is just a picture on the brain regions. But brain and the rest and the immune system, I told you, are not only connected through the stress hormones, which might be released and also affecting the brain, but also the gut itself is regulating the immune system, as I showed you before, and also going further is regulating the brain functions as well. And this is a very recent Nature publication published a few weeks ago, where this axis is summarized and reviewed. And in a nutshell, you can see here that this picture that I showed you before, that the brain is regulating through hormones, not only circulatory system of the gut, of course, but many other immune responses, but in the level of the gut, you have a very clear communication between the brain and the gut through the autonomous nervous system, so which the system that calms you down for sleep and to digest food. But there's also an enteric nervous system that is controlled through the brain. And you have a lot of other hormones which are also controlling the gut function and the immune system in the gut. However, in the gut itself, you have the bacteria who are producing neurotransmitters who are going back up to the brain and who are acting systemically when they pass through the liver and enter into the circulation. And in addition, the gut itself as well is affecting the immune cells here. So the bacteria in the gut are affecting the immune cells, and by the affecting the immune cells, the barrier is getting more loose or more tight, and regulating as well how many of these compounds that the bacteria are producing are released and entering into your body and up to the brain. Yes, so I come to the end. I know we are late and you might be tired after all. And I hope I was not too complex in my presentation, but there will, out of this, there is, to my understanding, a better need to integrate the organ systems to adjust the right countermeasures to these challenges that the crew or the overwintering crew and also other people who are under severe stress conditions are encountering. And my colleagues from NASA and we in Europe, we did many meetings and describing what are the best measures in extreme worlds. And this is a slide here for deep space missions that NASA has designed with us, but it's more or less also fitting in 90% to what we could probably anticipate for these extreme periods in extreme worlds like overwintering in Antarctica. And of course, there's always a precision, countermeasure to you have to select the right people. So no one should be sick when he is leaving, and probably also the right vaccination should be in place. But there are a lot of important general countermeasures that we should keep in mind and should also translate to the Antarctic environment. So how do we cope with each other? What are the best countermeasures and exercise? How to get the best sleep conditions? And there are a lot of reports from other investigators in Europe. Natalie Patain, for instance, on sleep, an expert in this area, and also stress relieving techniques. The other thing that we should keep in mind in this holistic picture that we have to have from a man or a woman, so a human being in extreme environment, is how the food is affecting you, since we know that the microbiome is affected. And how do we monitor this during this long period? This is also an interesting point, because you talked about hardware before. This is very interesting. How well should be the clinic, so to say, and the scientific setup be ready for these investigations to make right control measurements, especially when you add pharmacological anti-stress interventions like beta blockers, or use anticortisols for high corticoid people, and so on. So these are just assumptions, ideas, considerations. It's not a fixed plan. It's not put in stone, but these are the thoughts out of a community of maybe 50 people around the globe who thought about this. And so, generally, my last slide. So I think there's a strong need to understand and a strong opportunity to do that in these extreme environments in the individual, and where the crew are located in very high fidelity controlled environments, to look on how we adjust and how the immune health can be maintained. And I heard before, so we have to think European, we have to think globally, and we have to think very interdisciplinary in this approach to get the maximum data, have a lot of data sharing, and complete this puzzle of which is still not clear, and to add, everyone can add a piece to achieve this goal. And I thank you for your attention, for your patience, and I thank especially the DLR is funding us, the European Polar Board, supporting an epidemiologic study, ESA supporting this, EPEF, the Alfred Wegener Institute, and the PRNA. And thank you all, and the participants especially, who has joined us, and my team here in Munich at the Translational Research Lab. And I close this, and thank you very much for your kind attention, and looking forward to your questions and the discussions afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexander, for this very clear talk. Maybe before the question, we are going to move to the brief presentation of the survey. Can you still hear me? And
I hear you well. I work on a laptop right now because of the firewall issue that we have in the hospital. So I have a very small screen, but I try to arrange myself. I hear you well.
Okay, thank you. Can I have the screen to share for my slides, please?
I don't. What can I do? Should I close
Or
something?
maybe.
My task. Now you should have
good,
it.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alexander.
Now you should have the availability to share your screen, Daniela.
It's Paul.
It's
who
Paul
will,
who will
Hello, Daniela. Sorry, just see you.
Is it Paul?
Yes, it's Paul. We need to share his screen.
Okay, now Paul, the ball is in your field.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as Alexander said, it's late, so it will be a very brief presentation prepared by Daniela Billy from Rome and myself about the analysis of the survey for biology and medicine. I have 7 slides in total, so it will be short. Before talking about the analysis of the survey, we would like to bring to your attention this recent publication by ESA summarizing the biomedical research done at Concordia over the last 2 decades. And as you can see in the abstract, ESA and EPEB and PNRA have supported 36 biomedical research projects. And you may find these articles issued from this project at the end of this paper. Very recent paper published last summer. So if we now go to the survey analysis, we got 17 responses in total dealing with biology and medicine out of 114 respondents, according to the last version of the survey. So it's not the primary topic in science at Concordia, but nonetheless, it represents 15% of the total respondent. And as you can see here, it covers a wide spectrum of specialties in the field of biology and medicine, with 4 responses in human physiology, 4 responses in astrobiology, 3 responses in neuroscience and psychology, 2 responses in microbial function, 2 regarding horticulture or plant biotechnology, 1 response in life support systems, and 1 additional response not in the survey but communicated by someone in Italy regarding telemedicine and robotics in medicine. And as already pointed out, for instance, by Joël Savarino, there are many ongoing research which have been part of successful PNRA, IPEB, or ESA research proposal at Concordia. So here is a list of, sorry for the quite big table, but here is a list of the institution, the domain of research, and the more focused topics in the survey. So as you can see here, you have something in astrobiology regarding imported anthropogenic bacteria, astrobiology targeted studies in situ, something with human biology on the biological rhythm, metabolism, and energetics. This is a report by Alexander Schuker on the immune system. Also something from France about neurosciences regarding mindfulness disposition, which is also a similar topic to the work conducted by the University Católica Sacro Cuero about also mindfulness disposition. Research on microbial ecology and biotechnology with a microbial community in ISCORE. Something connected to life support system regarding habitats and life support systems. So it's connected to life science and to biology to some extent. Something by the Charité University about psychological aspect in Concordia. Again, astrobiology for identifying habitable worlds in space. Something connected to plant biotechnology to develop biological and environmental and aerospace project. This is a project, not an ongoing study. Also another project in horticulture with microgreen production for nutrition in isolated and confined extreme environments. Something connected to sleep physiology, and as pointed out by Alexander Schuker, Nathalie Patin has done extensive work on this topic already, and there are ongoing work on this as well. Microbial function regarding the changes in microbial function over time in respect with climate and environmental forcing. Two other research in astrobiology, searching for potential habitable worlds, and also delivery of exogenous material important for the formation of life, for instance, amino acids. We are currently doing a project study soon completed in Concordia on human physiology, hematology, and blood volume. And also there are some interest coming from San Paolo Hospital in Milan for telemedicine and robotic in the field of surgery. So it's not an extensive summary, but a few points that were highlighted by most of the respondents, saying the advantage of the Concordia site, which is a very unique, isolated, confined, extreme environment. Also regarding the immune system, as presented by Alexander Schuker. Also unique analog environment for space. And finally, a very unique model of long-term exposure to hypoxia in human, and in particularly to human lowlanders, because having a 1 year exposure to high altitude is very unique on Earth in lowlanders. Regarding the science needs that were identified by us for biology and medicine, it is related to upgrade the existing scientific and or medical equipments that are currently available at the station of Concordia, but also to install new scientific medical equipments to specific scientific purposes, like in other fields, to augment the data transfer capacity and the internet connection. Also for biomedical research, it seems to be key points in the future. And also some of pointed out the need for additional research area. And this is my last slide regarding the detail of the request in the 17 research I mentioned. It is equipments like incubators at different temperatures, the update of some equipments like lab hood or centrifuge, or to install a new system for cell or blood incubation systems. The internet connection is mentioned. Also the logistic to sampling of ice core in situ. Also for life support systems, the necessity to train personnel to operate new devices. For psychological research, this need was highlighted, a small area, a small room for conducting experiments related to psychology or neurosciences. Also, regarding the internet, the data transfer capacity should be improved. Regarding microgreen production for crew nutrition, power supply in water, and some nutrition for the ESA medical doctor has been highlighted. And also for microbial function, drilling of new cores, but also using the legacy samples for method development. And again, the internet is mentioned here, and for some astrobiology work equipment for the dry, slow heating at low pressure. So thank you for your attention. That's it.
Thank you. I don't know if there is some room for question and answer, maybe.
I check if there is something on the chat. So there is a question from Jérôme Chaplat from IPEV. Are there connections between biomedical research at Concordia and oops, sorry. Maybe if Jérôme can ask the question himself, maybe.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. I wonder if you have connections with scientists at Vostok Station. I'm not sure if there is any biomedical science done by Russian scientists at Vostok, but I wondered if there would be any connection existing at the moment. Thank you.
Maybe Alexander, you may have insight. I don't have personally, but or somebody else.
Just from our side, interestingly, although we are working with the Russian side so strongly together in space and in other habitats, so to say, simulating space, there are almost no connections regarding Arctic or Antarctic habitats. So, but it would be very interesting, definitely.
Thank you very much, Alexander. That's something I could bring in the frame of COMNAP when we discuss on the high plateau science and support to science on the high plateau.
Thank you very much, Jérôme.
Is there another question or comment? So if not, we again thank you, Alexander, for your talk, and maybe we can move to the next, or I give back the floor to Francesco.
Yes, thank you. Again, let me express our thanks for all the speakers and convener for the very high quality of the presentation. Now it comes the last of the presentation, which is a recorded one from Nicole Bibov from the Alfred Wegener Institute. She's the head of the International Cooperation Unit. She's a member of the European Polar Board, has a lot of expertise on how the European research infrastructure operates, and her presentation is exactly to understand how Concordia is seen from a European perspective, and how the Europe can benefit from the Concordia station. So let me share my screen and start the presentation, and then I will wrap up the webinar with a few slides from myself.
Of Polar Marine Research in Germany, and I'm the Dear colleagues, thank you very much for inviting me to this seminar on Concordia. My name is Nicole Bibo. I'm from the Alfred Wegener Institute of Polar Marine Research in Germany, and I'm the coordinator of the EU PolarNet and the
Francesco, we don't see the screen, sorry.
Invited to give you some ideas how you could widen the partnership for Concordia with other.
So it seems you are not able to see the screen. Let me.
The screen, Francesco. So I don't
now
know.
It's working. Now it's working. Yes.
Is it working? Okay, so I wrap it up and then start it all over again.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much for inviting me to this seminar on Concordia. My name is Nicole Bibo. I'm from the Alfred Wegener Institute of Polar Marine Research in Germany, and I'm the coordinator of the EU PolarNet and the ARISE EU projects. I have been invited to give you some ideas how you could widen the partnership for Concordia with other European countries, and I will present you in the following tasks some ideas how this could work. Several ideas are based on the work which we have performed in EU PolarNet. Others ideas will come from ARISE or other projects. To give you a short background on EU PolarNet. So EU PolarNet has been a coordination and support action which was funded for 5 years by the European Commission, and it just ended in June 2020. And we had several topics which we wanted to tackle. These are improving international cooperation, providing policy advice, defining the societal relevance of research need, but also we have worked on a better infrastructure access and usage plan for European infrastructures, and also our main output was an integrated European polar research program, which should set the scene for European research funding in the upcoming years. And this infrastructure access and usage plan, and also the EPRP, so the European Polar Research Program, are strongly related to infrastructure access and infrastructure sharing. So what did we do in terms of infrastructure? So first of all, as a background document, we compiled a European Polar Infrastructure Catalog together with the European Polar Board. And we also widened it to a database showcasing all European station camps, laboratories, shelters, vessels, and aircraft in the Arctic and in the Antarctic. Concordia is, of course, part of it. And as I said before, we compiled an integrated European Polar Research Program, co-designed with stakeholders from the beginning on, which defines or should give an idea of the future of European polar research. And along with this integrated European Polar Research Program, we also published or developed an infrastructure white paper on access and interoperability for European infrastructures, with some recommendations on how infrastructure access, sharing of infrastructures can be facilitated in the future. And the main recommendations from this infrastructure white paper were that Europe must promote the use and combination of infrastructures to answer complex and key science questions, which are, for example, identified in the EPRP. And these big questions, or especially those big questions which can only be addressed by joint efforts of several nations. We also recommended in terms of infrastructures to foster the extension of remote and virtual access activities. And we also especially tasked the transnational access to the Antarctic infrastructures, which is not just existing and which might be a solution also for Concordia. We recommended to foster this access and to fund projects which provide access to Antarctic infrastructure. So when it comes to implementing access and foster internationalization, there are several possibilities how you could do this. So one, of course, is MOUs, bilateral or trilateral MOUs among nations. That's something I do not need to explain you in more detail because you have it already in place for your shared Concordia station. Other possibilities would be EU-funded transnational access. I will go into this in more detail in a minute. A barter system for sharing infrastructures, and then the IODP, Integrated Ocean Discovery, International Ocean Discovery Program, or Mosaic system, which I will also introduce to you. And you see here on the left-hand side a slide of Mosaic, the big Arctic expedition the RV has just performed. And this is also heavily based on a joint research program and the sharing of this research vessel. And it can be, even if it's very large scale, also an example for Concordia. But first, I will start with EU-funded transnational access. This is a very ugly slide with a lot of text. Nevertheless, it should give you an idea what the EU wants when they fund transnational access to infrastructures. So these so-called integrating activities have to mobilize a comprehensive consortium of several key research infrastructures in a given field and from different member states or associated countries. And the EU provides funding to support the access, the transnational and virtual access to European researchers to go to this infrastructure and perform research at the infrastructure. They also fund the cooperation between the infrastructure, scientific community, industry, and other stakeholders, the improvement of services of the infrastructure, and the harmonization, optimization, and improvement of access procedures and interfaces. And everything is, of course, related to the European Charter of Access to Research Infrastructure. Why does the EU support this? So the idea is that we should better use our costly infrastructure. And if we share or give access to others to infrastructures, we get also a leveraging of fund by other European or international partners. We can better support international large-scale initiatives, and the access to infrastructure, in our case, polar infrastructure, can be given to strong polar programs with a lot of researchers who have clever ideas. Of course, we maximize the economic benefit when we share our resources, and we have a better possibility to fulfill the European needs for, here it's called Arctic research, but I would say polar research. So, and the EU does it also because they would like to give also access to scientists from nations which do not operate these infrastructures or whose infrastructures operate in different locations. So that's the strategy behind the EU funding. I will give you some examples. One of those examples is my own project, the ARISE project, the Arctic Research Icebreaker Consortium. It is, has 16 partners and a budget of €6 million funded by the EU. And we give access to 6 Arctic icebreakers. You can see them here. So the European ones, Polarstern, Kronprinz Haakon, and Oden from Sweden. Non-European icebreakers, so the inclusion of non-European partners is also possible. the US vessel Sikuliak and the Canadian vessel Amundsen. And also we have an industry icebreaker included into ARISE. And to access these vessels, you have to write a proposal submitted through the ARISE system. We will check if this proposal is scientifically excellent, and then we will do a logistic check. And if this is all positive, then you can get your project implemented on the vessels. Of course, as I said before, this is highly based on logistics. And another project, which maybe is a bit nearer to Concordia, is the Interact project, which is already an advanced community. Interact runs EU funded since 2011, has 54 partners from Arctic countries, and a total budget of 30 million euro. It gives access to 88 terrestrial research stations, which you see here on this slide, all around the Arctic. And what I forgot to mention in ARISE, but what holds also true for Interact, is the key issue is that the EU funds the daily rates of the vessels or the stations via the transnational access programs. So Interact works exactly the same like ARISE. You submit a proposal, you can implement your own ideas, and then you submit it through the system, and then you can go to one of those infrastructures, perform your research, write a short summary, and yeah, with this you can access all these stations in the Arctic, for example, through Interact. Another project, a more regional one, is the Svalbard Integrated Earth Observing System, which is an international partnership of researchers. It has been an EU project, a so-called European Strategy Forum of Research Infrastructure Projects, and received funding from Framework Program 7. Now it is in its operational phase. So CIOS is now funded by the Norwegian government and 23 observers. So Germany contributes to CIOS, Italy, Poland, several others. It's a real European infrastructure, but CIOS also gives Svalbard, so it's more regional than Interact, for example. And again, the same system. You write a proposal, it is evaluated, and then you can access one of the stations shown here on this map. In comparison, the difference between Interact and CIOS is that for Interact or also ARISE, you can submit any idea and you can get it funded if it's scientific excellent. The CIOS is a bit more focused on research, which is contributing to the CIOS system. So they give a bit more, they predefine a bit more what research they needed. So for example, contribution to the state of the environment of Svalbard report. And it's a bit more focused on research themes and research, the research area than the other two projects. If this is really implementable for the Antarctic and for an area like, or for a station like Concordia and its surrounding stations, something which I would judge difficult, I would say, because of several challenges which are connected with Antarctic research. Nevertheless, it could be worth trying, but the prerequisite to implement such a access project would be that you would have to join with other stations in the Antarctic, surrounding stations, or even European stations distributed all over the Antarctic. Another possibility, and an example how colleagues implement access to Antarctica at the moment, is the so-called Common Antarctic Peninsula Efficiency Task Force Initiative, long name. This is more logistics, but I would also like to show it to you as an example. So the rationale behind is that science in Antarctica is often limited because of logistics constraints. So the idea is if you share the logistics better, then you have more money available for science. And yeah, as I said, the logistics obviously represent the main fraction of the cost of Antarctic activities. And this group is a bottom-up initiative. Currently participating are Chile, Korea, Poland, Spain, and Turkey. It takes place on the Antarctic Peninsula, and it's developed according to a point-based bartering system, which is also used for the Ocean Facilities Exchange Group, which works exactly the same like this. So you exchange your infrastructure, here in this case, logistics for Antarctica, so ship space, flight space, or berth at stations, by a bartering system, and every single unit has a kind of certain amount of points, which will be then interchanged between the different providers. And this is totally cost neutral. So it is only, I give you access to my flight and you give me access to your vessel, and then we calculate that it is equally distributed between the two partners. And then finally, another possibility to make your station more international or European, and also to give access to your station, is the International Ocean Discovery Program system. And I mentioned Mosaic beforehand, our big Arctic expedition. They work, in fact, in a similar way like IODP, but on a smaller level. IODP is extremely successful, and it's running since 50 years. And it works a bit different than all the other examples I showed you before. So the main basis of IODP is its science plan. So IODP publishes every, 10 years or so, a new science plan, and you can submit research proposals to the drilling program according to its science plan. And the cooperation in IODP works in a way that all the partners have a memorandum of understanding to fund the, to contribute, I would say, to the research platform, in this case, the joint resolution, which you see here on the bottom of the slide, but also the in the memorandum of understanding, you buy into a share of this vessel operation, and according to this share, you can, or the scientists aboard of the vessels are selected. So this is a two-step approach. So you have a science plan, very broad, like it's written here, illuminating Earth past, present, and future. When you want to have a cruise on the vessel, you submit a proposal, an international proposal, so not you alone, but already in a team, to IODP. This will be evaluated, tested if it's feasible. And when then the cruise is implemented, the scientists on board are get berth according to the share the nation is paying for. For your example, so Germany, with its financial contribution, has a share of 2 persons on every IODP expedition. And when these expeditions take place, we can bring 2 people on board on every expedition where we want, plus the chief scientist in case it's the PI of the proposal. And I think this system here, the system with a big science plan behind, and then proposals which contribute to the science plan, and some kind of sharing of the infrastructure afterwards, would be, in my opinion, the best option for Concordia. Going back a bit more in the future, so what we can do for you. As I said before, EU Polonet 1 has ended, and we are now just got the EU Polonet 2 started. And our consortium have been even enlarged, and we will now work for the next 4 years on developing a platform to co-develop and to design European polar research actions. We also want to give policy making and so on and sustain this office. but for your community might be interesting that this platform, which we want to develop to bring European polar action forward, could be a way to promote access on science on Concordia. So if you have a good scientific case for Concordia or the Antarctic Plateau or the vicinity around Concordia, you could develop together with your colleagues this way the science behind and find partners who would then jointly work with you at Concordia. And I want to, EUPOLARNet has 2 tasks in this respect, which are clearly working towards this. I only want to mention it here. So one task is to support the development of large-scale polar initiatives, and we involve as many interested scientists in this as we can find. And we do this in a different, in a 3-step approach. You see it here. But what I want to stress is that we really want to define those initiatives that will best serve internationally agreed research focus areas. And this holds also true for Antarctica. So coordinated modeling or monitoring program at Concordia Station, or surveys in and around Concordia Station could be one topic which we could implement here. The other one is that we will work with funding agencies in EUPOLARNet to support the efficient use of resources, and we will really select 3 to 4 pilot studies which work on bilateral or multilateral sharing of resources, in this case infrastructures, and move them forward to the funding agencies. And these pilots which we will choose shall cover both the Arctic and the Antarctic, and have to be, of course, based on sharing of infrastructure, logistics, and observing systems. So here we have not started the work yet, but I see here a big possibility for you. If you involve yourself, you could really bring this European widening of Concordia much more forward. And then at the end, to summarize, so there are several options to implement access to Concordia and to widen the European contributions. If you want to have transnational access funded by the EU, it cannot be Concordia alone. So you have to mobilize a comprehensive consortium in, near, around Concordia, or even in the Antarctic. If you want to do it, you have to, of course, explore the funding possibilities. And if they are not available, you have to start massive lobbying at the European Commission. It's possible. We did it with ARISE and succeeded. You can also move to multilateral agreements to exchange personnel, scientists, and data and use a point-based barter system as OFAC use, or for example, also these Antarctic task forces. Another thing which I did not mention before, but to widen your research at Concordia to a larger European community would, of course, also be to provide remote access to all researchers interested in the data you are gathering at Concordia. This is much easier than personal access. And then finally, and that's my recommendation, which you should look a bit more into it, is to investigate the international ocean drilling program system with a research program at the basis, the internationally agreed science plan, and then with proposals contributing to this internationally agreed science plan. And since I could imagine, I'm not an Antarctic scientist, but since I can imagine that space and possibilities are limited at Concordia and around Concordia, for me, it feels appropriate to have a science plan and to work all together on these big science questions. Thank you very much for your attention. And I can only say, engage in EUPOLARNet 2 if you want to move this idea more forward. We will certainly be able to help you. Thank you very much.
Well, very nice presentation from Nicole. We have already expressed our warm thanks for having shared with us her vision on the possibility to open Concordia to a wider community. Then let me now launch my last presentation. I'm sorry, we cannot take question on Nicole Giebel's presentation. Do you see my presentation?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yet.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So this webinar is the intermediate step toward the reduction of the strategic plan document, which was asked for by the two ministries of research, the Italian and the French one. Let me just give my remarks on what have been said about what can be done and what can be proposed and what are the limits to our proposition. Of course, we have to keep in mind the difficulties of operating in Antarctica, but we should not, I think, limit our proposals to the existing logistics. We have been given the mandate to promote new ideas on science, and then if the logistics is feasible, is not up to us to decide, it will be decided by others. And so at the moment, I would say, don't limit yourself to the actual logistic. This is a document to promote new logistics based on new scientific need. So this was the intermediate step. We will have an online forum, which is actually already open as a follow-up to the discussion that have started today. And this document, this informative document on the Concordia scientific perspective, will be written after this event and hopefully finalized by the end of 2020. The forum will be read, so please collaborate and give your ideas by participating to this forum. I will tell you how, and the conveners and the member of the Concordia Science Committee will extract from the forum's material that will be feeding the document to write. Here you might see the link to the web page which hosts the forum. You have to create a CNRS account, since it is based on a CNRS platform, to access this forum. And this is simply done by accessing this link and then create an account on the CNRS portal. This is the first page of the web portal, and you see here you have menus from which you might access forum dedicated to these topics, so astronomy and astrophysics, atmospheric science, and so on and so forth. Keep in mind that each one of the topics will be organized by the scientific coordinator, which today have acted as conveners for the conference. And here you also have a common forum, which you might still use if you have remarks of general interest. So this is the link. I think what we can do is to send you an email with the link, so you don't need to keep note of that here. And with that, I will end my presentation, give space to your question, if any. And if not, I will very much thank you for your attention and patience in attending this webinar. Any questions?
I put a comment.
Yes.
And about the dreams. But okay, dreams are always fantastic to think, but please don't forget what say Jerome. 65 people at the station, 150 kilowatts, beds and power, and I can like to say also food and etc. To change this, we need to change our scale of operation. Okay, to change concretely. So these are two walls against which we need to compare our dreams. No, I continue. I'm experiencing Concordia. I was participating to the first expedition when the station just started, and I know then is improved a lot, but I believe then the message then should be very clear from this point of view. We don't need for example, the telescope, okay, fantastic. If it's an infrastructure that can be used for 20 years, 30 years, okay. So the investment to develop the platform, depending on the dimension, because I didn't receive any clear question about the size of this structure. So make the balance. If you need 4 or 5 years to transport, maybe we can collect money to use the aircraft to improve the transportation, okay, to reduce the time. Okay, this is the use of the time, but at the end of the story, the power and the beds are a limit. Then need to be always, you like to turn around 500 kilometers. Okay, how many people you need to take in the station to secure a search and rescue with the right capability? Okay, so these are the questions, these are the limits. Be honest in make the answer. No, otherwise we just dream. And I remember then in astrophysics was a EU project that make this for in beginning of 2000, Arena project. Never happened after the project. Just
yeah, I share the fact that we have to be realistic, but keep in mind, Vito, that all this machinery has been set up to improve the logistics. So keep in mind that you don't have to base
the scale of Francesco, you can transport the material with traverse or aircraft. Okay, I don't know. Traverse can improve more than we are doing. I don't know. Discussion is then is very difficult to increase traverse until you change completely the scale of your equipment at disposal. So you need to move in another scale. Okay, if you can move in a flat or in a villa, it's completely different. Okay, so you can dream to have a villa, but if you have the space and just a flat, you need to work in the flat. Just to explain what means. So always, and this is important. So I continue to say that otherwise we lose only time, really.
Well, can I intervene? Okay.
Yes, of course.
I agree with Vito. It's Joel Savarino who's talking. Well, I think we have a contradict message here. At the beginning of the day, Jerome said 60 people, 150 kilowatts. And at the end of the day, we have basically imagine whatever you want. So I think there's a contradiction here. Should we think out of the box of these limits or not? Because it's a completely different way to write.
No, you can dream in a constraint, in a box. You can change a lot. Even with this constraint, we can be imaginative and you can think.
Yeah, but please don't keep the box limit as they are now, because this document serves exactly to create new limits for this box. Of course, these new limits cannot be extended indefinitely. So you have to trade off between what you would like to do and what will be the actual limit in the future. But again, these effort serves to.
But we are talking about special effort, no. Okay, it's a special effort. The ministry asks for more money, but one time. They don't. I don't believe that they are planning to increase enormously the budget, the annual budget for Antarctica. But they say, okay, we know that you have needs, immediate needs and future needs. Okay, try to make a plan and ask for an extraordinary effort from us. But I don't believe that they planning to change the budget for Antarctica, double the budget for Antarctica. I don't believe that this is the idea of the ministry, but Jerome, then is more in contact, can tell more about this and what is the perspective. So my perspective is they ask, you need a special effort. Okay, these are the requests, these are the money. But then about sustainability of this structure, you need to move on your budget or to look for external resources. I don't believe then they plan to increase annual maintenance and annual cost for Antarctica, resources they put in for Antarctica.
I can comment on the question, which is a very good one. Let's take an example with the synchrotron facility. If the idea is to build a second synchrotron facility, it's not the way we're going there. On the other way, if the idea is to build a new light beam on the synchrotron, we are on this line. So we have a Concordia facility with a constraint we know, 65 people, 100 kilowatts. If the new science which is proposed, for instance, in astronomy, relies on a new instrument requiring something like 10 or 20 kilowatts full time with an optimal use of the kilowatts, that's something we can handle. If the project is to build a telescope of 5-meter diameter with 100 kilowatt of power to put next to it, that means that we have to rebuild the whole thing, like Vito said. That means that we have to increase our capacity with the logistics to bring the fuel required to produce 100 kilowatts of extra power. We can dream that at some point we will have the renewable energy to produce this 100 kilowatt of power from solar power. But at the time I speak, we don't have that. And it may take 5 or 10 years to develop this kind of system. So I would say that the answer is like, as usual, you know, kind of in between. You can think about new projects which brings new ideas in astronomy, in chemistry, in earth science, in gaseology, and so on, relying on the existing infrastructure. And that's what the ministry wants to hear first. Then if you have out of the box a big project which requires to increase the capacity, but not to the scale like you double Concordia, I think you can propose that, but it will be a long-term perspective to make it happen. So I hope that with these elements, you see a bit more clearly what is the expectation. Never forget that, you know, this kind of structure exists, but it's not supposed to exist forever. And we have to convince our ministries that the science done at Concordia is worth putting 10 million euros per year by our two ministries in the system. That's really a key point.
Thank you, Jérôme. This is very clear, and it's a clear point on this topic. Okay, shall we call it a day? No other remarks. So again, I'm thanking you all for your patience, for your attendance, and wish you a fruitful continuation of the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, speaker.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, conveners.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for excellent. Bye bye. Thank you. I learned a lot. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye. Let's keep in touch for writing the science plan.
Thank you. Bye-bye from Georgiana, INGV. Bye.
Ciao, Georgiana.
Ciao. Ciao.